There's another lesion down here I want to point out. I'm going to do this one first, I guess. There's an area down here called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. And this is an interesting lesion because it shows us that morality might actually be wired into our brain. I don't want to go into this in detail, but basically, people that have lesions here have no problem killing for the greater good. And you might be asking yourself or telling yourself right now, I don't have any problem killing for the greater good, but actually most of us do. And kind of one of the simple, it's been arranged in a couple of different ways, the experiment's been arranged in a couple of different ways, but I think the main way that I like to describe it is if there's a train coming down the track and you are right next to the switch, and if you don't throw the switch, it's going to kill 5 people. If you do throw the switch, it's going to kill 1 person. So you're going to be directly responsible for saving 5 people and killing 1 person. And it turns out that most of us would do that. Now, change the situation just slightly, and you say you're standing on a bridge over the railroad tracks next to somebody, and you see the train going down the tracks and it's going to hit 5 people. Do you shove the person next to you off the track, off the bridge, knowing that when the conductor sees that he's going to stop the train? And it's a little bit more nuanced. There's a little less chance there. It turns out that most of us would not do that. Another kind of a, well, it's kind of a crass description is kind of a, that's been presented to some people is a Nazi experiment. The Nazis are basically looking for Jewish people, and there's a baby that's crying. Would you snuff the baby in order to prevent the whole group from being found? And most of us would not do that. But people that have lesions here, they have no problems making that decision, saying, yeah, for the greater good, I'll do that. I know that's a little bit of a cruel one, but it's an interesting question that's been asked to people with lesions there. There's another area right here that lights up, and not all these are lesions. I'm just generally calling them lesions, but not all these are lesions. This area lights up on an MRI. So an MRI will, technically a functional MRI, will tell doctors, tell researchers when the brain is, what parts of the brain are being active. And when this part of the brain is active, it's usually because somebody is lying. So this is an area of the brain responsible for giving false information. So let me clear that up one more time and say it a little bit more clearly. So you can take a functional MRI, you can have it look at the brain and see what parts of the brain are active while somebody is doing something. And if that something is lying, then this area of the brain tends to light up. Moving next to, let's do this area here. It's called the insula. And you'd have to pull this temporal lobe off in order to see the insula. It's kind of deep in there. And this is responsible for visceral motor sensation. Sorry, visceral sensation. So sensation that's deep in the body. I'm going to go right back to lesions because there was an interesting one here that came out. It's within the last couple of years. Lesions to insula seem to alleviate habits. So the classic example, and it's been shown in something like 27 other people, so small numbers, but the classic example is somebody had a stroke in that area, and when he went into the hospital with the stroke, he was a smoker, and when he came out of the hospital, he was no longer addicted to smoking. So it seems to be an area responsible for habits. This area right here is auditory, primary auditory. This is going to be responsible for hearing things like pitch, rhythm, and loudness. So real basic hearing. Right behind that is auditory association. Auditory association. And this is going to be, again, so with the primary motor and motor association, the primary usually does the simplest kind of analysis, and then from there you go to more complex analysis. So the primary auditory of cortex does the really simple analysis of pitch, rhythm, and loudness. Auditory association gives the actual perception of sound. What does it mean? And how do you respond emotionally? So in general, sounds can elicit emotions, whether it's listening to certain types of music, things like that. And so auditory association will add to that the perception, the actual consciousness of that sound. Let's go back and do some more. Let's start to sensory. Let's start up here. This is called primary somatosensory. Somato means body and sensory means sensory. So this is going to be basic sensations of the body. Kind of like primary motor controls individual muscles, primary somatosensory receives information from specific sensory organs. So then we can build on that and say, well, then what would somatosensory association do? And that's going to build on primary to give us size, texture, and relationship. Kind of like, did you get hit with a tennis ball? With a soccer ball? With a bowling ball? Right down here is gustatory. So that's taste.